My name is Thomas Carter, and for the first 8 years of my marriage, I truly believed I had everything a man could ask for. A beautiful wife, Jessica, who was kind, loving, and supportive. A steady job that provided for us, and the occasional weekend trips we'd take to reconnect. Life was good. Or so I thought. You know how they say that everything can change in an instant? I used to laugh at that idea. I thought it was some cliché people used in stories or movies. But now, after what happened to me, I realize just how true that statement is. It all started innocently enough. My brother-in-law, Jake, came to town. He had been living out of state for years, working in construction, but after a rough breakup, he decided to come back and stay with us for a while. He was about a year younger than me, tall, fit, and with that charm that women seem to love. I didn't think much of it at the time. He was family. He was my wife's brother, after all. We were supposed to be close. I remember the first night he arrived. Jessica had planned a small dinner to welcome him back, and we all sat around the dining table, chatting like old times. It felt normal. The conversation was flowing, and we were all laughing, enjoying the reunion. Jake was telling us stories about his time away, and Jessica was hanging on every word, like she always did when he spoke. I could see the admiration in her eyes. It was something I didn't think much of. They were siblings, after all. But as the night wore on, something started to feel off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Maybe it was the way Jake kept looking at Jessica when he thought I wasn't paying attention, or the way she would subtly adjust her body language whenever he was around. It was almost as if they were too comfortable with each other. Too familiar. That night, as I lay in bed, I tried to shake the feeling. It was probably nothing. Maybe I was just paranoid. But then, my mind started to race. Were they too close? Was there something more than just sibling affection? It was a thought I couldn't seem to shake. The next few days were more of the same. Jake staying over for dinner, Jessica doting on him, and me trying to keep a balance between making my brother-in-law feel welcome and keeping my thoughts in check. But the discomfort grew. Little things, gestures, looks, touches, began to stand out to me. Things that, at first, I had thought were innocent, but now seemed to carry a deeper meaning. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home early. I expected to find Jessica in the kitchen, preparing dinner, but instead, I found the house eerily quiet. I called out to her, but there was no response. That's when I heard the faint sound of voices coming from the living room. I figured they were just talking, maybe catching up. But as I rounded the corner, I froze. Jake was sitting on the couch, and Jessica was standing right in front of him, their faces so close that I could see the tension in the air. They didn't notice me at first, and for a brief, terrifying moment, I thought they were about to kiss. My heart sank, and the world seemed to stop for just a second. But instead, Jessica quickly pulled away, her face turning bright red. Jake stood up abruptly, acting like nothing had happened. They both turned toward me, and for a long, awkward moment, neither of them said anything. "Hey, Tom," Jake said, his voice a little too casual. "Didn't hear you come in." Jessica seemed flustered, her hands trembling as she ran them through her hair. "Hey, babe," she said softly, avoiding my gaze. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but I didn't know what to do. Was I just imagining things? Or had I just witnessed something that shouldn't have happened? Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "I guess I got off work early." We all sat down for dinner, the conversation awkward, the tension palpable. But as the night wore on, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen. My mind raced. Was I just overreacting? Or was there something going on between them? I had to find out. The next few days felt like I was living in a fog. I couldn't shake the image of Jessica and Jake that night in the living room. My mind kept replaying it, over and over, asking myself the same question. Was something happening between them? But I didn't have any concrete proof. Just gut feelings and that nagging sense of doubt that seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. At work, I was distracted. I couldn't focus on anything, and even though I told myself I was overreacting, I knew deep down that something wasn't right. I had always trusted Jessica. No, I had always loved her. But trust is a fragile thing. And once it starts to crack, even a small crack, it doesn't take much for the whole foundation to crumble. One evening, I decided I needed to confront her. I couldn't keep living with this tension. But how would I even start the conversation? What if I was wrong? What if I ended up ruining everything over a baseless suspicion? It was a Wednesday when I finally gathered the courage to approach her. We were sitting in the living room, just the two of us. Jake had gone out to grab a drink with a friend, and I saw this as my chance to get some answers. "Jessica," I began, trying to keep my voice calm, "we need to talk." She glanced at me, her brow furrowed. "About what?" I paused, trying to find the right words. I didn't want to come off as accusatory, but I had to know the truth. "About Jake." Her expression softened. "What about him?" I took a deep breath. "I've been noticing some things lately. I feel like there's a distance between us. Like you and him are closer than you should be." Jessica blinked, her eyes widening slightly. "What do you mean?" Her voice was steady, but I could tell she was already defensive. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "I don't know. I guess it's just little things. The way you two talk, the way you look at each other. It's uncomfortable." She was silent for a moment, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. It wasn't guilt, but it wasn't innocence either. It was like she was trying to figure out how to respond. I couldn't read it. "Tom, you're overthinking this," she finally said, her voice soft but firm. "Jake is my brother. There's nothing going on between us. You're just being paranoid." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was only scratching the surface. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Because every time I look at you two, it feels like there's something more going on." Jessica sighed and ran a hand through her hair. "Tom, you need to relax. Nothing is going on. I promise you." Her words were reassuring, but they didn't make me feel any better. I wanted to trust her. God, I wanted to believe her. But there was something in her eyes, something I couldn't ignore, that told me I was right to be suspicious. We spent the rest of the night trying to pretend like everything was fine, but I couldn't shake the sense of dread. I went to bed that night with the feeling that I was on the edge of discovering something I wasn't ready to face. The next day, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. I went through her phone. I know. It was wrong. I shouldn't have done it. But I was desperate. I needed to know the truth. And as soon as I picked up her phone and unlocked it, I saw something that made my stomach drop. There on the screen was a message from Jake. It was a simple text, but the words shook me to my core. "I miss you. Can't stop thinking about last night." My heart raced, and I could feel the blood drain from my face. Last night? What the hell was he talking about? What happened last night? I quickly scrolled back through the messages, my hand shaking as I read more of their conversation. "I know we shouldn't, but I can't help it. I want you." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't want to believe it. But there it was, clear as day. The truth had finally come crashing down on me, and I felt like the world was spinning out of control. My wife, the woman I had trusted, loved, built a life with, was having an affair with my brother-in-law. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I felt numb. But even worse than the shock and betrayal was the realization that I had been blind. Blind to the signs, blind to what was right in front of me. I had to confront them. I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't live with this secret hanging over me. I could barely breathe. My hands were shaking as I put Jessica's phone back where I had found it, as though I could somehow erase what I had just seen. But there was no turning back now. I knew the truth, and the weight of it hit me like a truck, crushing everything I thought I knew about my marriage. I couldn't sit in that house any longer. I had to get out, clear my head. But the thought of confronting her, the woman I had shared everything with, was gnawing at my insides like a beast. What if I was wrong? What if I misunderstood the messages? I could always pretend I never saw them, ignore it, and maybe it would go away. But deep down, I knew that wasn't who I was. I wasn't going to pretend. I couldn't unsee what I had just read. I drove aimlessly around the city, trying to clear my mind, but all I could think about was Jessica and Jake. What had they done? How far had this affair gone? The answers I didn't have yet burned at me, and I couldn't stop asking myself the same question. Why? Eventually, I ended up at a park, sitting in my car, trying to catch my breath. The evening sky was turning dark, and everything felt surreal. This wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to be my life. But here I was. After what felt like hours, I made up my mind. I had to go home and confront Jessica. I couldn't leave things in the air like this. I had to hear it from her. I had to know the truth straight from her mouth, even if it broke me. When I got back to the house, Jessica was in the kitchen, making dinner. She didn't even look up when I walked in. She was humming to herself, completely unaware of the storm brewing in my chest. "Jessica," I said, my voice cold and sharp. She turned around, her face lighting up when she saw me. "Hey, babe. You okay? You've been gone a while." I didn't answer her. I couldn't. Instead, I walked over to the counter and placed her phone down, the one that I had just gone through. "Do you want to explain this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My heart was racing, but I wasn't going to let her see the devastation in my eyes. She blinked, a look of confusion crossing her face as she glanced down at the phone. When she saw the message from Jake, her face turned pale. "Tom," she whispered, her voice cracking. She took a step back, her hands trembling. You went through my phone?" "I had to," I spat, frustration rising inside me. "I had no choice." "How long, Jessica? How long has this been going on?" Her eyes welled up with tears, but she didn't answer. The silence between us was thick, and I could see her struggling for words. "Is it true?" I asked again, my voice almost a whisper. "Is it true that you and Jake, you've been together?" She closed her eyes, taking a shaky breath, and for a moment, I thought she might deny it. But instead, she nodded, barely audible. "Yes. We've been seeing each other for a few months now." The words felt like a slap in the face. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My body went numb as I processed what she had just admitted. "Why?" was all I could say, my voice breaking. "Why, Jessica? Why him?" "I don't know," she sobbed, her hands wringing together. "It just happened. I never meant for it to go this far. I don't know what came over me. It was a mistake, Tom. A huge mistake. But it happened, and I can't take it back." "A mistake?" I scoffed bitterly. "A mistake? You've been sleeping with my brother for months, Jessica, and you think that's just a mistake? What, am I supposed to just forgive you because you say it was a mistake?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, Tom, I know I can't just expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. But I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this to happen. You never wanted to hurt me," I repeated, my voice rising. "You think sleeping with my brother didn't hurt me? You think this is something I can just forget? I didn't mean for it to happen, she pleaded. We were just talking, and then it was just one thing after another. I never thought it would go this far, but we got caught up in it, and now I don't know how to fix it. I'm so sorry. Sorry? I echoed, the word tasting like acid in my mouth. You're sorry? You've been lying to me, cheating on me, and you think sorry is going to make this better? Jessica collapsed into a chair, covering her face with her hands as she sobbed uncontrollably. I stood there, my mind spinning, trying to make sense of what was happening, of what had happened to my marriage, my life. For what felt like an eternity, there was silence between us. She cried. I seethed with anger and hurt. The betrayal stung so deeply that it felt like a physical wound. The pain was sharp and all-encompassing. But at the same time, I was numb. I had never felt more alone in my life. Finally, I broke the silence. Where is he? Where's Jake? She wiped her tears and looked up at me, her voice barely a whisper. He's out with some friends. He's not coming back tonight. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that he was still out there, oblivious to the storm he had just created. He had no idea how much he had destroyed. I looked at Jessica one last time, my chest tightening with every breath. I can't do this anymore. I can't stay here. Not with you, not with him. I understand, she whispered, her voice breaking. I never wanted this. I never meant for this to happen. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you, I said, my voice cold and distant. But right now, I need to get away. I need to think. And with that, I turned and walked out, leaving everything behind. The house, the life we had built, the love I thought we shared, all of it crumbled in a single moment. And I didn't know if there was any way to pick up the pieces. I didn't know where I was going that night. I just needed to get away from her, from everything. The car was like a cage, a prison where I was trapped with my own thoughts. My mind kept racing, replaying everything, her face, her words, the realization of what she had done. It felt like I was suffocating in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I drove for hours. The city lights blurred past me, but none of it mattered. None of it could erase what had just happened. I couldn't shake the image of Jessica sitting in that chair, crying, apologizing, but offering no real solution. Was this even fixable? Could we rebuild from this wreckage? I ended up at a hotel. It was a cheap, rundown place, but it didn't matter. I couldn't go back to that house. Not after what she'd done. Not after the man I had called my brother-in-law had betrayed me in the worst way possible. The thought of facing either of them again made my stomach churn. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I stared at my phone. The screen lit up with a dozen missed calls from Jessica. I didn't want to talk to her. I couldn't even begin to process what I was feeling, let alone try to have a conversation with her. But there was Jake, too. He hadn't tried to reach out. Part of me wondered if he even cared. Was he sitting comfortably, pretending like nothing had happened, while I was left to pick up the pieces? I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. Every time I tried to block it out, the memories flooded in, dragging me deeper into despair. I should have known. The signs had been there, hadn't they? The late nights at work, the strange texts, the way they looked at each other during family dinners. I had been so stupid, so naive. But then, in a moment of clarity, I realized something. I couldn't just fall apart. I couldn't let them win. I couldn't let Jessica and Jake ruin everything I had worked for, everything I had built. I had to pull myself together. For me. For my sanity. And for the future I had left. The next day, I went back home, but things were different. The air in the house felt thick, suffocating. Jessica wasn't there. She had left me a note, a simple apology, but it didn't change anything. I could see the guilt in her handwriting, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to undo the damage. I didn't know where she had gone, and honestly, I didn't care. Part of me wanted to confront her again, demand answers, but I knew it wouldn't make a difference. She had already made her choice. She had already made her bed. And now, I had to figure out what I was going to do with mine. I couldn't stay in this house. Not with all the memories, the echoes of everything that had gone wrong. I needed space. Time to think. To breathe. I called my brother, Mark. He was the one person who had always been there for me, through thick and thin. I didn't want to tell him everything. I didn't want to burden him with the details of my marriage falling apart, but I needed someone. Anyone. "Hey, Tom," Mark answered on the third ring. "What's up?" "Hey, man," I said, trying to sound normal. "I need a place to crash. I can't stay here right now." "Yeah, sure. You okay?" Mark asked, his voice full of concern. "I don't know, man," I muttered. I need a break. From everything." "I get it," he said. "Come on over. I'll be here." I hung up the phone and grabbed a few things. I didn't need much. I didn't want much. I just needed to get out. I grabbed my jacket, my wallet, and a few essentials, and I left the house for the last time. When I arrived at Mark's apartment, he greeted me with a concerned expression. He didn't ask questions. He didn't push. He just gave me a hug, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like I could breathe. Like I wasn't completely alone. We spent the evening talking, but it wasn't about Jessica or Jake. It wasn't about what had happened. It was about everything else. It was a distraction, and I needed it. I needed to forget for just a little while that my entire life had been turned upside down. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't forget. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. And every time I heard Jake's name in my head, I felt a rush of anger. What was I supposed to do now? What was the next step? Could I ever look at her the same way again? I stayed with Mark for a few days, but I knew I couldn't keep hiding out forever. The truth was, I needed to face it. I needed to decide what I was going to do with my life. I couldn't let this betrayal define me, but I also couldn't pretend like everything was fine. I had to make a decision, move forward or let it all slip away. It wasn't until the third day that Jessica finally called. I saw her name flash on my phone, and my heart sank. I couldn't avoid it any longer. "Hello?" I answered, my voice hoarse, as if I had been holding my breath for days. "Tom!" Her voice was shaky. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what else to say. But I need you to know it wasn't just about the sex. It wasn't just about Jake. I've been feeling lost for a long time. And I made a terrible mistake. But I love you. I don't want to lose you." I sat there in silence, trying to process her words. Was this real? Or was she just trying to say what I wanted to hear? Was I supposed to believe her? "I don't know if I can believe you anymore," I said quietly. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again." "I understand," she replied, her voice breaking. "I've betrayed you in the worst way, and I can't undo that. But I want to fix this. Please, give me a chance." The silence stretched between us. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I could give her that chance. I spent the next few days in a fog. The weight of everything kept pressing down on me, like a 100-pound weight on my chest. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't shake the feeling that my entire life had been turned upside down in a matter of hours. I had talked to Jessica a few times since that call. Her voice always sounded fragile, like she was walking on eggshells, terrified of making things worse. And I was terrified too. I didn't want to make a hasty decision. I didn't want to give her another chance just because I was too afraid to face the truth. But at the same time, I didn't want to throw away everything we had for a mistake. A massive mistake, yes, but one that I wasn't sure was completely unforgivable. I had to make a decision. Was I going to rebuild with her, or was I going to walk away and never look back? Could I ever trust her again? Could I ever look at Jake without feeling that deep, gut-wrenching anger? It was late one evening when I made my way back home. The apartment felt empty without her. She was supposed to be there, waiting for me, but instead, the silence was deafening. I had avoided coming home for days, but I knew I couldn't keep running away. I had to face her. I had to face the life I had built with her. I walked through the front door and stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. Everything felt wrong. The air felt heavy, like everything in this house had been tainted. But I couldn't stay away forever. I had to hear it from her. I had to see if there was any chance of reconciliation. Jessica was sitting on the couch, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. She looked up when she heard me come in, and for a moment, there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. But it quickly vanished when she saw the expression on my face. I didn't know what to say. I had so many emotions swirling inside me: anger, hurt, confusion, but also that faint hope that maybe, just maybe, we could fix this. "Tom," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You came back." I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, staring at her, trying to figure out if I could believe anything she was saying. Could I trust her again? Could I ever forgive her? "Yeah," I finally said, my voice hoarse. "I'm back. But I'm not sure what I'm doing here." She stood up and took a step toward me. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she said, her voice trembling. "But I'm begging you, Tom. Please give me a chance. I can't undo what I did, but I'll do anything to make it right. I love you. I always have." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be able to look at her and feel the love we once had, but it wasn't that easy. Every time I thought about what had happened, every time I thought about Jake's face, I felt that sick feeling in my stomach. It was like my entire world had been shattered, and now I had to pick up the pieces. "I don't know if I can believe you," I said softly, shaking my head. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I don't expect you to forgive me right away," she said, her voice steady but filled with desperation. "But I need you to know that I'm sorry. I've never been more sorry in my life." I could see the pain in her eyes. I could see that she regretted what she had done, but I couldn't forget what I had seen, what I had heard. The betrayal was too fresh. It was too raw. The trust between us had been destroyed, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. But then, there was something else. Something deep inside me that still wanted to believe that we could fix it. That maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. But how? How could I ever go back to the way things were? How could I forgive her for sleeping with my brother-in-law? Could I ever look at Jake again and not feel that anger, that betrayal? "I need time," I said, finally breaking the silence. "I need time to think about this. I need time to figure out what I want. What I need." "I understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Take all the time you need. But please know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." I nodded, but I wasn't sure if I believed her. She had already shown me who she was, and it hurt. It hurt in ways I couldn't even begin to explain. But I also knew I wasn't ready to let go of everything we had built. I wasn't ready to walk away from the woman I had married, from the life we had together. Not yet. That night, I stayed on the couch. I couldn't bring myself to sleep in our bed. Not yet. The thought of lying next to her, pretending like everything was okay, made my stomach turn. The next few days were a blur. Jessica gave me space, which was what I needed. She didn't push me for answers. She didn't beg me to forgive her. She just waited, and that was the hardest part. Waiting for me to make a decision. Waiting for me to figure out what I was going to do. I spent hours walking around, talking to friends, talking to my brother. Everyone had their opinions, but no one could give me a clear answer. Some told me to move on, that she didn't deserve another chance. Others told me to forgive her, that marriage wasn't perfect, and people made mistakes. But I didn't know. I didn't know if I could forgive her. I didn't know if I could live with the thought of her being with someone else. And I didn't know if I could ever trust Jake again. The idea of facing him, of seeing his smug face, made me feel like I might lose my mind. I thought about it long and hard. I went through every scenario in my head. And then, one night, I made my decision. The days after that conversation felt like an eternity. My mind was constantly racing, going over every detail of what had happened, trying to piece together some sort of logic or reasoning behind it. But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces just didn't fit. The hurt wasn't fading. The anger was still there, festering beneath the surface. Every time I saw Jessica, her face, her beautiful face, reminded me of the trust she had shattered. Every smile, every attempt to hold my hand, felt like a mask she wore, trying to pretend everything was okay when it was anything but. She'd cry, she'd beg for forgiveness, but the words felt hollow. I didn't know if I could believe them anymore. I didn't know if I could ever feel the same way about her again. I spent days lost in my own thoughts, trying to decide whether I was making the right choice. Should I forgive her? Should I leave her and never look back? Could I live with myself if I stayed, knowing what had happened? And then there was Jake. Every time I thought about him, a deep, gut-wrenching rage would fill me. My brother-in-law. The one person I trusted. The one person who had known about our marriage, who had been a part of our family, and yet he chose to betray me in the most intimate way possible. I couldn't even bring myself to look at him. He was the embodiment of everything that had gone wrong. I knew I had to confront him. I couldn't just leave it hanging in the air. He owed me an explanation. I needed to know why he did what he did. I needed to look him in the eye and hear it from his mouth. It was a Saturday afternoon when I called him. I told him to come over. He didn't hesitate. I knew he was probably expecting this moment. We'd all been avoiding the inevitable, but now it was time to face the truth. He arrived at the apartment about an hour later. He looked nervous, which surprised me. He was usually so confident, so self-assured. But today, he looked almost like a boy caught in a lie. I didn't care. I wasn't here for his feelings. I was here to get answers. "Tom," he said, his voice sounding strained as he walked into the living room. Sit down," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "We need to talk." He hesitated for a moment, but then he took a seat across from me. I could see the guilt in his eyes, but I didn't care. He wasn't the one who deserved sympathy. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. "Jake," I said, my voice low and controlled. "Why? Why did you do it? Why did you sleep with Jessica?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out at first. I could tell he was struggling with what to say. Good. He should be struggling. He had betrayed me in the worst possible way. "I don't know," he said finally, his voice cracking. I don't know what happened. It was a mistake, Tom. It shouldn't have happened." "A mistake?" I echoed, my voice rising with anger. "A mistake? You slept with my wife, Jake. My wife. How is that a mistake?" I wasn't thinking," he stammered, looking down at the floor. "We were both in a bad place and—" "Stop," I snapped, cutting him off. "Stop making excuses. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew exactly who you were hurting. And you did it anyway. You could have stopped, Jake. You could have walked away. But you didn't. His head hung low, and for a moment, he looked like a defeated man. I didn't feel sorry for him. He didn't deserve my sympathy. He deserved to feel the weight of what he had done. He had crossed a line that could never be erased. "I'm sorry," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "I truly am. I never meant for it to go this far. It was stupid. I was stupid. Stupid," I repeated, feeling a sickening sense of disgust. "That's what you think this is? Some mistake? Some stupid little error? This is my marriage, Jake. This is my life." "I know," he said, his voice strained with regret. "I know, and I'll never forgive myself for what I did. But I swear, it wasn't like it was planned. It just happened. And I've been hating myself for it ever since." I didn't know what to say. His words, his apologies, meant nothing to me now. It was all too little too late. The damage had been done, and nothing he could say would ever make it right. The betrayal was too deep, and I couldn't look at him the same way again. I stood up from the couch, walking toward the window. The view outside seemed distant, like the world was moving in slow motion. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, but there was something else there, too. A sadness. A sense of loss that was almost unbearable. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now," I said quietly, my voice breaking slightly. "You've ruined everything, Jake. You've ruined my life. And I don't know how to fix it." There was silence for a moment. I could hear the weight of my words hanging in the air, and I could see the regret in his eyes. But it didn't change anything. The damage had been done. "I'm sorry, Tom," Jake said again, his voice filled with regret. "I truly am." But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough.